Welcome to the Law Firm Growth Podcast, where we share the latest tips, tactics, and strategies for scaling your practice from the top experts in the world of growing law firms. Are you ready to take your practice to the next level? Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Law Firm Growth Podcast. I'm your host as always, Jan Roos, and I am here with a super nitty-gritty solo pod on something that we've been working on for the last couple months. So we recently started what's referred to as an ISA team, ISA standing for Independent Sales Agent, because I'll get into this. We had some challenges with the third-party alternatives that are currently available on the market, and we really wanted to just wave a magic wand and have control over a situation where clients didn't have the ability to book appointments by themselves and have something that could be done consistently and get good results as far as booking demos for our clients. So as far as kind of the use case here. So we work with firms, and this is specific to our estate planning webinar offer. We work with firms that range from solos all the way to pretty large, 7-figure, 8-figure firms as well. So this challenge wasn't really in place for a lot of the larger firms, as you can imagine, but for a situation with a solo or a small firm, for example, where you were either the person who was responsible for following up with the people that were responding to the marketing, or you had a shared resource in the office, or it was somebody that was helping you out in fulfillment. We had a situation where when you started getting the leads, it was super exciting and people could follow up. But as soon as you have consults booked and work to actually fulfill on, which is obviously the goal and the success of any marketing problem, the follow-up was usually the thing that would go by the wayside the first, right? And also looking into this, it kind of made sense because what we have as a result of this program is something that's pretty unique in the legal world when you really think about it. So we've had some fantastic people who are intake experts on the show before. Gotta say, Gary Falco, it's one of my personal favorites. But most of the advice that's coming in and most of the services that are coming in as far as intake is concerned is really, it's called intake for a reason. So inbound calling. So this is also tied to the way that marketing's been done for the most part in legal for, as long as digital has been around. So basically, or I guess even pre-digital, if you're thinking about billboards and yellow pages and that kind of stuff. So you wait until somebody has a challenge and they're going to call a number. So the scripting is all geared around somebody who already has an active need. Now to flip it, and this is a reality that hasn't been around for a super long time. But when you think about stuff like form fills, when you think about stuff like Facebook lead ads, when you think about people downloading an ebook or attending a webinar, that kind of thing, we have a situation where somebody has absolutely opted in, but how you're going to bridge that gap isn't by waiting them to make a call. And in practice, most of the programs that I've seen where people are forcing or waiting for somebody to show up, really, really hard to make money on that because most people won't go out of their way to make a decision, right? And that's just, something I've accepted about human psychology, but something that we can work around. So essentially, what we have to do for that kind of a lead is not inbound, it's outbound. And outbound doesn't really have a precedent in the legal space. It has precedents in all other areas, but the reason why it isn't in the legal space is that if you were to pick up the phone book and just start dialing names, that would get you disbarred. That's solicitation. You can't do it. So it's absolutely kosher to follow up with people that have opted in and have, with the appropriate disclosures and all that kind of thing. But it's something that there isn't a huge precedent for out in the legal market. So we found ourselves in a bind. Yeah, this has been something that's, over a year in the making. And we're actually around this time last year, we were looking into third-party solutions for this. And what we found for a lot of them was that third party doesn't do outbound, point blank, period. We found a handful of situations that were okay with doing it. But the challenge that we had with them was that we couldn't have a consistent agent. And a lot of the ways that some of these third-party fulfillment, as far as the intake goes, is that you have a pool of agents and they are all qualified. They're all really good, but there's never going to be a situation where you're going to have the same person. So from what we saw, a lot of the stuff with outbound, the stakes are a little bit lower. There's a little less salesmanship required on getting somebody to book an appointment because when it's coming from a Google ad or a billboard or you name it, they've already decided, hey, this is something that I need. And there's a little bit more work to get somebody to that point, and you have to structure the offer in a certain way, and there's the script and blah, 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 blah. So anyways, we had situations, and the first time, this is actually kind of funny. So if I can think back to March of last year, we had situations where we had a third-party fulfillment, and we had fantastic results on the first day. And I thought, oh my God, this is the best. We've got it cracked. We've got the marketing. The fulfillment is going to be taking, those leads and turning them to appointments on the calendar. We've just hit the mother load here. But we were kind of quickly disappointed when the subsequent days did not turn out the same way. And that's because we got great results from some agents. We got poor results in other agents, and overall just wasn't consistent to the point where it made sense to direct a pretty significant marketing spend towards people that we couldn't trust could close the gap, right? And another thing too that we've seen also is non-native English speakers. I don't have anything against non-native English speakers in general. We do have people in our company that are non-native English speakers, but I don't have them in customer-facing roles. And especially with the kind of law that we were talking about, trust in the states, a lot of the times people have an expectation of very, white glove service. A lot of these people are very wealthy, and it's not a great look even if it's not what you're doing, if you appear to be cutting corners by hiring people from, the third world, that kind of thing too. And the last thing that was kind of an issue is that basically we couldn't really get anyone to commit to our process, right? And a lot of the times too, it's not like an overwhelming amount of work that needs to be done. And generally we're recommending people call before lunch and before the end of the day just to have the best chance of getting in touch with somebody. That might only be, 3-4 hours a week, right? The truth is, if you have somebody that you're only hiring for 3 or 4 hours per week, chances are they have, just assuming a full workload, 9 other people like that, right? So we couldn't have a situation where the other 9 people were running different scripts. So we just decided to take it in-house. So anyways, that ended up being the decision. And we ended up having a fantastic first hire forward and we have, got a process that's ironed out where we've been able to really, really repeatably scale people up. And basically, this is kind of how we ended up getting it to work. If it's something that you guys are interested in getting incorporated into your own thing, again, this isn't meant to be a pitch on something that we do because it only applies to a very specific kind of lawyers. But if you are hiring somebody to take care of your appointment setting for you, this is going to apply for you, right? So anyway, a couple things that we've made an absolute need for anyone who's coming into the program. The first thing is we need to make sure that the intake is all or nothing. If we have a situation where somebody expresses interest in the offer or the firm, we need to make sure that there is 100% some person that is responsible for taking that next call, right? The whole principle here is we don't want to have a diffusion of responsibility because, as I've gone over in a lot of previous podcasts, every hour that we wait on getting back to a lead, obviously the chance of contacting them goes down less. So just to make it easy, 100%, if a lead comes in, it has to be responsible for the person who is the ISA, right? The other thing too is that we want to have that person focused exclusively on setting appointments. So we're not going to have them doing admin work. We're not going to have them doing collections, that kind of thing. It's only about setting appointments and confirming appointments. So they're really geared up and tuned for that, not to say sales conversation, but that next step conversation, just really geared to get people to that consultation. Another thing super important, we need to make sure that the calls are being recorded. Now, this is something that I've recommended in previous podcasts as well. But as far as getting process ironed out, we need to be able to coach people on what's working and what's not working. So if you don't have recording calls, it's really going to be hard to get this to work. Next thing on the list, we need to make sure that we're having the calendaring function totally automated. Now, one of the things, and this is kind of an interesting roadblock with some of the first clients that we had, was we had a couple instances where people were really into having a paper calendar and in their office. Now, this is something that if you have a full-time staff member that's physically present in your office, it makes sense. Well, I'll go walk by Jan's calendar and see what he has going on. But, obviously this is going to be distributed, so that's not a reality, right? And personally, I don't think a paper calendar is the best way to do things anyway. So if this is something that forces you to get with the times, I think it's probably for the best. An automated calendar and having the discipline around that. And basically what I mean by that is making sure that if you're going to be out of the office, if you need to pick up the kids, if you need to go to the gym, if you're just taking the day off, you need to make sure that's blocked off on your calendar so you don't realize, oh my God, I have to take this call and I was supposed to be in the airport at that time. So setting up an automated calendar and having the discipline to have that automated calendar reflect what's actually going on is going to make sure that you don't have situations where you're double booked or you have, just a call that you have to take at a time that you're not available. So corollary to this is the more availability that you make, the more money you're going to make, right? So sometimes people have these things where like, oh yeah, well, I only want to take calls at between noon and 1 on Wednesday and Friday. And first of all, that's going to limit the amount of consultations that you can possibly have in a week. But basically, it's going to be less likely because, you want to take it during lunch. Well, what if you have somebody who doesn't want to take a call during lunch? Well, then you're screwed. You're either going to have a situation where you're having a back and forth with the agent about when the time works. And overall, if you have less availability, its chances are that you're going to be booked up farther. And like we said before, time kills all deals. The more availability you have, the sooner you're going to be able to schedule people, and the more likely it is that they're going to be to close. I know ultimately, I know there's always a concern of lifestyle, but you really have to ask yourself, this isn't a question that I can answer for anybody, but how bad do you want it? Do you want it bad enough where you're willing to take a call until 7:00? If you want to make more money, it's kind of about like, are you willing to, what's a scarier demon to face? Your spouse who's going to be yelling at you for making dinner late, or, the vendor that you owe money on for, not closing up clients, right? So it's up to you ultimately. And for the people that are extra hungry, we've actually seen fantastic results for people keeping either a Saturday or Sunday open. Again, it doesn't have to be the whole day, but with the stuff that your clients have going in on their own lives, the more convenience that you have, the more people you're going to be able to see. Next thing is that we make sure that there are certain things that the ISAs will never speak about. And this is pretty obvious stuff, but basically we need to make sure that they're not providing legal advice. Any situation where they have specific legal questions, we direct them to, bring that up on their consultation. And then also, this is super important, not having pricing information on the call. There are very specific ways that are objections that we can handle. And I got to see if this might be something that we should record another podcast on. But you should never be giving pricing info out on a call. And this basically puts you in the best position to close them on the actual consultation, which is ultimately what we want to do. So anyway, kind of like overall results from what we've seen from this program. And again, this has been, we recently kicked it out of beta, but we kicked this off basically in November of 2020. So at the time of this recording, it's been the mix for about 2 or 3 months. But we've seen that a good ISA is probably a 10 times improvement on somebody who's totally green or some sort of a, shared third-party services, right? Reasonably, we're expecting at least 1 consultation booked per day, which, will back out to about 5 consultations booked per week, which is on a pretty modest lead volume. And we're not talking about 100 inbound calls or a $10,000 AdWords budget here. For the most part, the standard of the people that are getting those results is anywhere from, 10 to 20 realistic leads to call on a weekly basis from a budget on Facebook of about $20. But again, if you think about it, as long as your consultation process is dialed in, 5 consultations per week, if you have a reasonably good close rate, that could be another 2 or 3 closed clients per week. Multiply that by whatever you charge for an average client. And this has actually been a really, really successful program for the clients that we've implemented this for. So basically, I hope that was helpful. If you are considering hiring somebody to take care of the appointment setting position for yourself, I would give this podcast a re-listen and think about those concerns. If you want us to do the ISA for you, I have bad news. We probably won't. So we're not actually offering this as a service. So the only people that we're offering this to currently are people that are already in our program for estate planning attorneys, which we call Seminar 2.0. So I will include a note in the show notes for how to apply for that if you are interested. Again, I'm sorry if you don't happen to be an estate or elder planning attorney. It's not something that we do for any other practice areas at this moment. But that's kind of the easy button if you do happen to fit the bill for that. So anyways, that is it. Notes on hiring an ISA team. And I will be with you next week, Tuesday, 8 a.m. on the Law Firm Growth Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Law Firm Growth Podcast. For show notes, free resources, and more, head on over to casefuel.com/podcast. Looking forward to catching up on the next episode.